Hello, Raymond. How are you? I'm so excited I got to see you at Meatstock. You agreed to come on and chat about your expertise on my podcast. So, can you
Well,
tell us who you are, what you do, and how you came to carnivore?
well, first of all, thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm honored. And as far as who am I, my name is Raymond Nazon. I've been a carnivore for 9 years. I've actually coached for 8 years of that and developed the program, the feasting and fasting program, priming and fasting, how important that lifestyle is for most carnivore. But really, before that, I was pre-diabetic. I had a waist size of 44 inches. I was acne. I had sleep apnea, plantar fasciitis, diverticulitis, to the point where my doctor thought that I would need to get a surgery for it. So I had a slew of many other things on top of that, dandruff, for example, just pimples everywhere, so many things. But all of that actually, weirdly enough, when I went carnivore, all of those resolved within a year and a half. Now, it wasn't perfectly, when I say a year and a half, it's like all of a sudden everything like resolved. No, it was really where the pain went away. And then there was so much more after that that kind of even brought about, which I had no idea what, back then. And I know you probably can relate, Christina. I actually thought I was healthy, feeling this bad. I just thought I was just getting older, right? So I actually, oh no, I'm pretty healthy. So I never realized what real health felt like until I was actually out of pain. Then I thought, that's healthy. Wait. And then I started having like better mental clarity, better spiritual awareness, better groundedness. And I was like, oh, that's healthy. Wait, then I started being able to do many, many more things physically. And I was like, oh, wait, that must be healthy. So now I can't even say what the point of healthy is because it just keeps stacking on itself. So now I'm really confused. Is it being out of pain, being healthy? Sure. That's a big one, right? But it's not all of it.
I love how you said that, you just thought you were getting older. And most people are so inflamed that they actually think that how they're living is normal. I like to make jokes about I was on chia seed, pudding, and cacao, and my favorite veggie straws right before I went on a trip that set off a cascade of allergies. I was 7 months of reactions, and my friend reached out and said, you're allergic to almost everything. And I think you should look up Michaela Peterson. And I did. I thought he was crazy, but I did. And he went from vegan, plant based to he's a carnivore now. He really helped me by saying, go look that up and go do some research. Changed my life. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. What was going on? You said you've got all these symptoms, all these things happening, and you thought you were a pretty healthy guy. But
Yeah.
when did you get to that point where you're like, I'm done doing it this old way? I need to find a new way.
Yeah, that's a great point because there's always this point where it's like, where's that breaking point, right? So my nurse was actually the catalyst for that. She brought me in the office. She's like, "Hey, we need to talk to you in private." So that was the first nurse, and they were telling me my A1C is a 6. You've got all of the symptoms of getting to be diabetic, and they pretty much said, "Look, diabetes is something that can possibly be managed, but it's going to get to the point where you're probably going to need insulin." And, that vision in my mind, insulin. And of course, they told me about maybe neuropathy, cutting off my feet, going blind, which I've read about. Right. And I was like, that's scary, right? Thinking that I could go there. And of course, I already had my diverticulitis thing. Back then, I didn't know that I probably needed surgery for it, but that's probably a symptom of diabetic. I started researching a lot about it and seeing, back then, Google wasn't as censored. So I actually Googled how to cure diabetes
Huh.
online. And I found dietdoctor.com, which was a low carb, high fat. And back then also, I was already into more of a health mindset, like because of my kids. So when my daughter was born, I found a Weston Price diet and was able to implement it 2 years later. So then I really thought, I was healthier, because I'm eating the proper grains that are, ancient grains or all of the properly prepared sourdough, thinking I'm doing good thing by eating more vegetables, not less processed food. And of course, yes, it did increase where I felt, can't really say I felt that much better. But anyways, I did have the mindset that I was on the right path, right? And I was doing higher fat animals because of the Western price. But when I had that shocking awakening that I had was going to diabetes, I was like, okay, then there's something I need to do about it. And they told me you could work exercise and or do diet, which their diet recommendation was a diabetes recommendation, which I read that. And because I knew about the Weston price, I was like, I'm not going there. So I worked out. I worked out for 7 months and because thinking that's going to get me somewhere. I gained a pound, felt no better, felt no worse, was able to jog from walking, but that's about it. I actually looked as big as before, still inflamed. And I was like, you know what? Not a rocket scientist, not too smart. That's not working. Diet, I mean, just exercising is not working. So I was like, let me try diet next after I found the Western price. I mean, I'm sorry, Diet Doctor.
What's on Diet Doctor? I've never seen that.
Yeah, Diet Doctor is a big they're big with the animal fats and they're pretty much a meat and greens. The reason I put it in my mind as meat and greens is every fruits that they talked about had to be no sugar. I was like, well, it's easier just to think meat and greens. Because back then I thought I had to have vegetables, right? I had to have fiber. How am I going to poop? Yes, I was one of those that thought the same thing, right? I was like, okay, and I went on that diet for like 6 weeks because of a competition they had for my workout gym, Orange Theory. And so I went on it for 6 weeks and weird thing that happened. I guess it was the water flush, but I lost 10 pounds, which is not a big deal. But remember, I didn't lose any pounds during 7 months of working out. And I did it 7 days a week. Okay. So I was working. So I lost 10 pounds and I'm like within the first 3 or 4 weeks. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of strange. But here's the weird thing is I lost 10 pounds and it was noticeable enough that other people noticed it. So it looked like I lost 30 pounds. So I was like, okay, there's something there. And of course, knowing later on that that's all inflammation. The problem with that going on it for 6 weeks, first of all, there was a lot of resistance from my wife, but she knew I was going to do it only 6 weeks. She's like, you're not doing enough vacation. So I was like, okay, fine. But the other problem was cooking for 2 hours at a time. I mean, let me tell you, chopping up vegetables, onions, herbs, and all that. Oh my God, it's a lot of work. I mean, I literally took 2 hours every day just to cook. So in the end, I was like, this is not sustainable for me. I know that's weird, but that's where I was like, the low carb, high fat wasn't sustainable for me. So I had to look at something else, and that's where carnivore.
Have you ever been told you should keep it simple?
First of all was the eat all the rainbow thing. So much complexity. Even the diet doctor part was complex to me. It's like, oh, you can have root vegetables as long as it doesn't turn to sugars. It doesn't this. And I'm like, look, meat and greens. I can follow that. Meat and greens, meat and greens. And so I simplified it myself. I didn't really follow their way. I was like meat and greens and high fat. I did a lot of lard, a lot of butter, a lot of, whatever. And that was the simplest I could get. But even then, that wasn't simple. That was
Yes.
still like, I didn't realize how much cooking I would be doing.
Yeah.
So that's too hard for me, right?
Well, for
Or,
a lot of people.
yeah. Or else I'm going to pick even the easier part where I was stuck in back then, eating Burger King and McDonald's, which I knew those weren't good, but they're easy, right? I like the sense of easy.
Mhm. Meaning like going to get burger patties?
Well, that which I didn't know that was a choice back then, right? I
Yeah,
didn't
a la
think you could
carte
just get it
now.
a la carte and stuff like that. Now I can. Now to me, that's even too much trouble to go out to a McDonald's and wait in line. Meanwhile, I can just pop it in my air fryer myself and have the burger patty. And I go shopping once every 2 weeks. I just buy a bunch of frozen meats and some fresh and just plop it in and it takes no time to cook. And I've even gotten even simpler with my fasting lifestyle. I hardly even spend the time to eat.
How do you do that schedule? And I do have a question I want to ask first. So hold
Yes.
that one. So when you started, what did keep it simple look like day to day? You kind of told me that, but like what kind of meats do you get? What do you
Yeah.
eat? Do you eat pork? Do you eat chicken? Do you just eat beef? And what were you actually eating when you didn't have to figure all this out? Like you said, it took hours to cut up all those vegetables because we believe we need them. We've
Yes.
been so programmed to believe, and they literally just turn to sugar in the body. We didn't even know that. People still don't believe me when I say that.
Yeah, they don't. And I honestly think the reason carnivore was so attractive for me is the simplicity.
Yes.
So at first, it was a different story because, when I first got on carnivore for the first time, I was still craving or thinking about other stuff. So I made a deal with myself during that time that, I'm going to allow myself to eat as much as possible all throughout the day. Here's the thing though, I didn't even discover ribeye at first at all. I don't know if I ever had one in all my life, right? Even before then, I was like more like ground beef and chicken and eggs, but I didn't really care for the chicken that much. I was mainly bacon and eggs for the first couple months. And I just ate constantly all throughout, and cheese. I'm sorry, and cheese. So I did keep dairy in because I noticed that I would get very like palatate fatigue if I do something that's not fun. So I added cheese later on and stuff like that. And that does make it fun. And I was like thinking to myself, as long as I don't have any adverse reaction to it, that's what I did. Later on, things started getting simpler when I found out ribeye. I mean, I did ribeye, no salt for like 8 months because Charlene and Joe Anderson, that's what they did. And I copied that. I just wanted to see what happens. So I did that for 8 months. And that was a little later on in carnivore. But the point is how easy is it to do where you don't even have decision fatigue at that point? You're like, oh, I know what I'm going to have because I'm going to have every same thing every day. And
Yep.
that is so freeing. It's like an energy transference thing. You know, if you already know what you're going to eat, because back then I used to be like, I'm not in the mood for Mexican. Oh, I'm not in the mood for Chinese. Oh, what am I in the mood for? But I'm starving. I'm starving, right? You know? So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny because people will be like, that's boring. I couldn't eat that way. You'd be surprised what you can do when you change your perspective and you have a goal that you want to really achieve.
I totally agree. And as you know, it's like you actually start enjoying the way, this way, because again, you don't have the decision fatigue. You already know what you're going to have. And Christina, you might say something different on this, but the way I look at it, food is not really entertainment. It's not that I don't like it. I like it, but it's totally not entertainment for me anymore. It's just fuel. It's something I need to have that actually helps me think better, helps me feel better. But otherwise than that, I'm not having fun with my food.
We shouldn't have to have fun with our food. I think it's the weirdest thing that people have to be entertained and eat cake because there's cake there or eat ice cream because there's ice cream. I'm like, but if you looked at what you're feeding your body, then you would understand why your body's doing what it's doing. And the
Yeah.
reason it's doing those things that you've been told are menopause or you're told that, it's aging and it's unavoidable. But I teach my community, I teach the women I work with that that is not true. And those symptoms you're having are because of the lifestyle you're living and the food that you're eating. If they know better, I think they do better.
I love that. And that's the thing that only an experienced carnivore can say. So I love that you're saying that. It's really a different state that we are in. Both of us, I'm assuming with you, you were in that state where, I mean, I couldn't go hungry for longer than 3 hours. Literally, I'd start
Two.
to have cold sweats and stuff like that. I get cranky and all that. This is only 3 hours, okay? I have to have something in me, whether it's like a little candy or something, right? This was the state I was in. I was addicted to food, or I can't even say food, whatever that is, right? And when you're actually properly nourished with the proper stuff that your body needs, you're not in that state anymore. You're not in that craving constantly state. And I get it. If somebody would have told me, if I talked to myself, I wouldn't believe myself back then. I'd be like, there's no way I could get out of that state. No, I don't care what you say, even though if you're me, I wouldn't believe. That's how strong I was thinking that this is who I'm supposed to be.
It's so bad that we have been lied to our entire lives. Look back over 50 years ago. The food that we were eating doesn't even resemble what we have today in the grocery store. And what you said is food. I like to call it fake food and
Mm,
non food items. That's what we've been sold as safe and healthy to eat, and we can moderate. But if we could moderate it, we wouldn't be overeating it.
perfect.
And on top of that, these things are made in a laboratory behind closed doors and they are wanting to sell as much as possible of it. They
Yeah.
don't want you to moderate it, and
Uh,
they didn't design it to be moderated.
mm.
When you first started, you started doing carnivore. Did you notice that you had, like longer periods? Also, like, did you struggle? Did you have like some of the weird things that happen when you first start carnivore?
Oh,
Like, what happened?
yes, yes, yes. So many things. So I did get the carnivore flu at first. The biggest struggle was I wanted to do it right. So I got along with my doctor and nurses, and I told them, hey, guide me through this. This is what I want to do. And they're like, no, 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 no. Do the Mediterranean diet. That's probably the best thing. Or the diabetic diet. That's what you really need. That diabetic diet. And I'm like, come on, I really want to try this. Do you mind monitoring me through this? He's like, all right, we're going to do that. But we're going to need your lab work every month. So I did that. Big mistake. The reason is my labs showed everything was worse right off the bat. I mean, it was like I had a stable line, and my blood pressure got worse. My cholesterol got much worse. My triglycerides got worse. I mean, just every marker was terrible. So, of course, I'm going through this diet thinking that I'm actually feeling better. And then I get this test and I'm like, my God, according to them, I'm killing myself. I'm literally working my way to a heart attack. But as far as cravings and all that, I read enough to notice early on that as with the certain Facebook groups back then, they didn't have many, but they had the zeroing in on health, which I read a lot about that. And I noticed that one of the mistakes that everybody does is not eating enough. I was like,
Hmm.
I'm not making that mistake. I actually literally ate around the clock. I mean, I took that seriously. I was a binge volume eater and I just embraced that. Embracing that, I was surprised. I remembered my first day. I was like, "Oh wow, it's already evening, and I'm not really wanting anything else." And my brain's like, it's like thinking that I could have something else, but I really didn't want it. And then 2 days in, you don't want a weekend, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird, and it's a new feeling for me. I've never felt like I didn't have something that I literally almost like I'd just rather not eat at points, especially during the second week. I was like, okay, I've had enough. And I noticed that I just went longer and longer without food after that. There was a nice little progression that happened, which that's how I created my calendars from there. So letting people know, hey, it's okay to deliberately eat if you need to at first. Actually, it's recommended. So yeah.
Okay, so many things. I've been dying to learn more about this priming, and I've asked a couple of people, but I
Yes.
didn't realize you're the man behind the plan. When you did this, were you worried about the scale? Did you monitor that? Did you look at the scale? Did you gain weight? Like, what
Oh my
happened?
gosh. I'm glad you said that. So the biggest part for me was, yes, I was already big. And I was like, if I got bigger, am I gonna look that much different? I don't care. And I was like thinking to myself, I almost had that mental rebellious mind that said, if this is bad for me, then I should be able to eat as much as I want and I'll notice that it's bad for me or notice that it's good for me. Right. So I did. I actually ate quite a bit. I gained a little bit of weight from that, but I didn't look at the scale. So I don't really know how much I gained. I just didn't care. But as a man, it's different. Right. And as a fat man already back then, it didn't really matter if I got fatter. I was like, because back then I was like at the point where I just gave up on getting skinny again. Because no matter what I did back then, I mean, I did all kinds of cleanses and all that kind of stuff back then just to lose a little bit of weight, lose a little bit, gain twice the amount. I mean, you know the story, right? I was like, I gave up. I gave up. So I was like, okay, this just gets me to the point of I was just looking for pain relief at that point because my diverticulitis stuff flare ups were just so terrible. I was like, and I was at a point. I I guess I don't say that's too much, but I was pooping blood every other month. And the other months that I wasn't, I had just really bad urethral type pain. Guessing it was like more infection there. It was hard to pee or anything like that. And of course, then I had the colds that came, which was every other month also. I was just constantly with one cold or the other. It was so bad that my wife was like, you can't help me. It's like, I have to take care of you all the time. And, as a man, that's kind of, I'm supposed to be protecting. I'm supposed to be the one helping her with things around and I couldn't do it. And that's kind of embarrassing.
So, how does she feel now about you?
Well, she likes that I'm more capable. She actually gave up on me. So now she barely asks me anything, but she notices I am more capable now. I'm very capable. I can do a lot of things.
Mhm.
But yeah, she's really resentful for the diet. Even though she tried it for 2 months and had great results, she just doesn't, she thinks that there is another way. There's a better way. And maybe she's right. She hadn't found it yet, but I feel like I did. And she saw my transformation. And in a way, my transformation also made her feel, without saying anything too off, it made her feel threatened a little bit because
Mhm.
she's like, what is he doing that for? Is he looking for other girls?
Yeah. So she doesn't support your carnivore journey.
Yeah, no, she doesn't. Yeah.
My family doesn't support mine either. My husband's he's mostly carnivore, but he has skin issues and he wants them to heal, but he hasn't gone 100% like all the time. And he's a superintendent on the job that he does, and his workers will bring him food and they are cooking him meat, but they have lots of seasonings and, you don't know what's in it. But
But
yeah, his skin is not happy. And I said, well, if you go completely carnivore and you do it for 90 days, you'll see the difference. But in the meantime, it's like you've got to make choices for yourself. But yeah, my family, my community here around me, I'm the crazy one. I'm going to
yeah.
kill myself. I'm like, you guys are staring at me with donuts in your hand, which is completely unhealthy. And you're telling me I'm killing myself.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
My sister actually told me literally, you need to eat a pizza to make
What?
you feel more healthy. And I'm like looking at her, you know what's in a pizza? What are you talking about? I'm like,
That's not even real
I'm like,
food.
but you mentioned donut, but it's funny that they think that that's going to rescue me. A pizza, that's not even real food, you
But
know?
look at you. Look at
Yeah.
you compared to the earlier version of you, and people still I believe genuinely that people are threatened by the fact that we've decided to cut out the things that they just cannot give up, and it
Yeah.
makes them so upset. They're saying things to us because we are triggering them.
Yes,
But they don't wanna
absolutely.
change, they just don't wanna change.
Well, I mean, if you admit that, you look better, you felt better afterwards, then you got to admit that the diet had something to do with it. And if you admit that the diet had something to do with it, that means that could actually help you. And so this is a big leap all of a sudden that, oh, maybe I need to do something about it and actually change my diet to do that too. I understand because that's the way I would have been too back then. I hate to say it, but I would have been very close-minded to anybody that come to me like keto or even diet change. I was very against it.
I don't like to call it the carnivore diet. I know
Yeah,
people
I know.
do. I call it the carnivore lifestyle and the carnivore way of eating because I think women, especially at this stage, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, they think that the word diet means they're going to lose weight. And
Yes.
so my podcast has lose weight, low carb, meal prep, strength training, and workout. And the reason I do that is because I want them to come
You wanna
in
attract them. Yeah.
and then I want to tell them the truth, which
Yes,
is when
yes,
you give your body the right tools and the right environment, it will heal itself because it
yes.
was made to heal itself. It's not the carnivore heals it, it's that you're giving your body the nutrient dense food it needs to calm that inflammation, and it's hypoallergenic. So, most humans can eat this and
Yeah.
actually get better. It's just that mindset. So, that's one of the things that I teach is perspective.
I
Everything is perspective.
I love that. And really, I don't like the idea of diet for another reason. The diet term that puts you in more of a crisis mode, into more of a fight or flight mode, which is like, hey, the carnivore zen is real. Us getting in our relax and digest actually helps us absorb more nutrients and actually helps us, use it properly. Meanwhile, if you're thinking of just weight, you're stressing yourself even what you need to eat. So even a nutrient dense diet like this, and you're just thinking about weight, is not going to work as well as if you just let go of that weight and allow the change and the process to happen into your body. And later on, when you're strong enough and you really want to look into maybe some kind of weight thing, then you can. But then your mind is already healed. You already have that calmness. And that I think that's important behind it.
Exactly. And for me, it's like I tell women, listen, your body knew what to do before you went on the first diet. I
Yeah.
actually have someone in my community that's never dieted before, and she went
Oh
on a
wow.
carnivore lifestyle. It's been
And
amazing. She didn't have any keto flu. She didn't have any
Lord.
any negative things. She just went into it and it's smooth sailing for her. She's probably close to 90 days at this point and
Wow, that's
just
amazing.
loving carnivore. But women think that they need to control their body. There are
Yes.
so many women online that are teaching, I teach you how to control your body. I'm like, but your body doesn't need to be controlled.
We're
Like
not
if
machines.
you're not supposed to do that. If you could do that, then
Yeah,
you could breathe for yourself. You could make your heart
exactly.
beat. You could make
Exactly.
the blood go out and come back. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But mostly, I want women to understand that if they let go and they do the due diligence of sticking to carnivore and just being satiated and not going back. We go back sometimes. But when we
Yes.
go back, we get to make that choice. Kelly Hogan told me on an interview with her that she didn't go back. She goes, if you start it, you can tell yourself, I only have to do this once,
That's right. I love
But
that.
I like to tell them that weight loss is a side effect of taking care of your body and showing up
Yeah.
for yourself.
I love that. And I totally agree. Yeah. It will come. It will come in time once you deal with all of the mess that we have undone ourselves with. And really and honestly, the issue about weight loss, it's how we view ourselves. And honestly, I found out actually going carnivore that my mind was pretty warped and sick the way I saw myself. I didn't appreciate myself for me. I didn't appreciate that my body is going to take me to the end of my life. I thought it was something to maneuver, something that was, a thing. Really, I mean, for me, I thought I was mentally sick back then if I thought that I could do that. And I was not able to do that. That's the worst part, right? Anyways.
When you started carnivore, I know you said you ate high fat, but are you still high fat?
Yeah, initially I was very high fat. No, more I'm a lot leaner now. I just graduated to a little more leaner because what happens for me is that early on I was just craving fat, wanting a lot of fat, a lot of bacon, a lot of high fat meats. And then eventually it was like, okay, I felt like little stints of lean. So I was like doing chicken wings. And for some reason I just was like enjoying it, like more like New York strip or sometimes sirloins or filet mignon. And then I'll notice all of a sudden I'll have another high fat like week or month and then go down again. And then now I'm mostly more lean than anything else. Charlene Anderson, which I hope you met her in Meat
I
Stock.
believe I did.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Anyways, she's a 28-year carnivore.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, she likes to refer it as buckets. So when your bucket gets a little too full, then it's time to empty out the bucket. So whether you have too much fat, then your body will signal you, hey, I want lean. And that's okay to go lean. And then when you go lean to the point where it's like, oh no, my bucket needs to be filled up with fat. So then you do that. So I like her description because to me, the way I started looking at it is if we lived in a bubble, then maybe we could measure out all the calories we need, all the fats or whether protein we need. But we don't live in that. We live in a very, very fluid environment. So there's stress, there's moves, there's death in the family, whatever it is. And all of that changes our ratios and also our calorie intake. And that is a normal part of actually trusting our bodies to hear what it wants and acknowledge it, whether I need more high fat or more leaner. That's what I go with.
I love that you said that your body could tell you. And I think that we don't really hear those signals because we're just so deep in carbs and all of the junk food that we can't even get the messages. And when you went carnivore and you noticed this, do you think that healing is when you're high fat? And then maybe once you heal,
Yes. I mean, initially, I didn't know. I just knew high fat was important at first, and I actually enjoyed it. So that's kind of where I went along. And then until I stopped enjoying it, I actually hit the meat aversion stage. Meat aversion's usually because you just don't want anything fat. You can have shrimp, you can have other things. So that's what I learned. I learned like meat
hmm,
aversion is just go low fat carnivore for a while, then it'll come back. And that's how I learned that feeling.
oh, I have to tell my friend. I'm going to text her when we get off. She's got a meat aversion and she's been eating ribeyes and butter for a long time. So I'll tell her that's what that is. Okay. When people are so focused on calories, do you think it's more about the nutrition and the food versus needing to know the calories?
So, fortunately, we were trained in SECO, calories in, calories out, and we really believe, oh my God, if we eat so many calories above our BMR, that we're going to gain X amount of weight. And really, we forgot to pay attention how foods are actually hormonally driven, not necessarily calorie driven. And if it was calorie driven, then how come you've got a skinny, which I never understood that. How come you have a skinny person that stays skinny and they eat the most amount and they're actually losing weight? So it's like, obviously there's something wrong with that calorie model. Now, saying that, maybe that calorie model does work for people who are on a standard American diet. So
Mm,
at least to a certain extent, but definitely doesn't work on a carnivore diet. That's what I've noticed. Okay. Cause I've had people prime for the first time and that was the first time they started losing weight or inches. And some people actually gained weight that lost inches. Okay. Explain that on a calorie model, right?
yes.
I'm sure you might have seen it too, where it's like, my God, how can you eat so much? And then you're just leaning up. Look at Bella, for example. Now, don't get me wrong, Bella did initially gain weight And then
Mhm.
she gradually started taking it out. But you're right, there is a prospect of healing. The problem with the human mind is we think that healing is linear, like we can tell our bodies what to heal, and it doesn't work that way. I had no idea what was healing. I mean, I even had certain points where things felt worse than before. And I was like, what's going on? And then I had to convince myself that, oh, think about it. If my body decided to perform surgery on itself, wouldn't it show as a pain first and then it would deal with that, but not necessarily in a bad way? I just took my time and I noticed it lasts about 2 weeks, disappears, comes back later on, does a little more, and then it disappears and eventually just disappears. And I totally forgot that it even existed. I believe the body is, and I've witnessed it. I'm sorry. I've actually witnessed it, not from others, myself, that it does heal itself. And I can't explain what healing even feels like because it's not there any the pain's not there anymore. The things are just not there. It's just like it didn't exist before.
Which is so amazing. What a blessing to have gone from living that way all the time to starting something and trusting the process. I bet you didn't say, I'm only going to do this for this many days and then I'm going to move on. Because people that say, I had someone say they're going to do it for 40 days. I was like, that's an interesting number. But
Yeah.
it's like when you are eating carnivore, I think red meat is the best food to eat for the first 90 days so that you can see like a baseline happen. And then once that baseline happens, you're like, oh, I had the most amazing conversation with Kelly Hogan when I interviewed her and I asked her, tell me about your weight loss because that's what everybody wants to know, right?
Yeah.
And she said, well, I lost weight like 80 pounds the first year, but she kept going because it wasn't about the weight loss. It was about healing her body.
Right.
So the coolest thing that she said was she didn't lose a pound for 2 years, but
Right.
she noticed that her loose skin was disappearing. And I was like, that is body composition. The
Yes.
body was eating all that loose skin because she kept going and she was consistent. And so many people listen to those things. I follow this guy named Joey Form on Instagram, and he had his mom over. There's two things that he said that was really cool. So he had his mom over, and he lives in Australia. So she comes and sits, and he videos her talking about carnivore. She was eating 7 to 8,000 calories a day, and she
Wow.
got down to under 90 pounds. And she
Wow.
goes, I got a little nervous. And then she just kept going and she's back up to 96, which is where she usually is. But he was trying to say, the calorie model is not working over here. What do you mean? And then he did this one video because he like throws a knife and it lands in a steak. And so he said, the other night, I was driving home late from work and I had these beautiful and terrifying thoughts of Taco Bell. And he
Mhm.
goes, well, guess what I did? I drove home and I ate my meat until I was
Yes.
satiated. And I
Yes.
was like, see, if we just trade out that old fuel source for the new one and we just trust the process, then we get full on the right nutrients. And it's not like your body is going to gain a bunch of weight overnight. That's
Right.
water. And
Right.
people just need to look at their body composition. Like
Yes.
I did a fat fast for 3 days. I was told I should never do that. I enjoy them more than water fasting or fasting in general, but it was super easy. And I watched my body composition change. And I went from low ketones to high and to now they're really good. And I'm just noticing so many things. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So we have to be open to
Peter.
all the possibilities instead of being stuck in all the, negative things that we are told.
Yes. Well, there is an open to all the possibilities. Also, especially early on, we have a tendency, and I was one of them, to do way too much.
Mm,
I was stacking everything. I'm like, oh, this is better. I was like, farm raised, all of this stuff is better. And so I actually stressed myself to the point where I almost actually gave it up because of that. Again, like you said, keep it simple. Keep it simple, bide your time, enjoy your process. And this is how you're successful. Don't start saying just because a little issue happens and you start panicking over it. Let's say, oh man, I feel really bloated today. I don't feel good for whatever reason. Don't just say it's a carnivore diet. I mean, it's not like we did not feel good before at times where we had colds and all that, but we never questioned our food. But now all of a sudden we're actually on a special regimen. Oh no, it's got to be the food. Right? Maybe I need
so
to change
funny.
something. Maybe I need to add liver. Maybe I need to eat more butter or eat more food or eat more fat, eat more meats or whatever, or eat less. With that confusion, it makes it hard for you to actually let your body follow. I'm a big proponent of leaving your mind behind, but let your body follow, and then you follow your body. And that kind
So
of
good.
seems really helpful.
We usually are trying to control our body versus letting it lead us because
Yeah.
we had a weight set point,
Yeah.
it knew what it was doing. And
Yeah.
then we had someone tell us we needed to go on a diet to control.
Yes.
And then millions of diets later, by the time we're 30, 40 years old, we've done so many diets. And I don't think they've worked. People will say it worked, but then this
Well, but
happened.
then, right.
But
Right.
it's like you're trying to do something that's not sustainable, that's unnatural, and
Yeah.
you're thinking that's going to fix you when your body already knows. So I
Yes.
teach body gets back into balance when you give it the right things. We focus on the right foods because food is fuel and food is medicine. Movement. It's absolutely necessary. I'm not talking cardio and running
Right.
and
Right. Right.
jumping
Work
jacks.
like a
I'm
walk,
talking
whatever. Yeah.
walking and strength training. It's
Yeah.
really simple. And then working on stress management and delegating and setting boundaries.
Right.
Then we work on the sleep aspect because, if you don't sleep, then you're going to crave all that stuff the next day because your body's so out of balance. I know that women don't actually slow down, just take care of themselves. They're like,
Right.
I got to manage everything. So
Right.
I teach them delegate. Your kids are there. That's what they're doing is they're growing into adults. They got to know this stuff. So
Yeah.
let them do it. They're
Yeah.
in a practice zone. And then we work on the mindset, which I call perspective because what you think tells your brain over and over, and it will automate it. If they
Yeah.
don't like what they're getting, they're going to have to give it a new thought.
That's right. I like just that principle, but I love to tell people that carnivore is a foundation. Once you get that foundation, you'll want to move more. Once you get that foundation, you automatically want to get more natural. You want to put your foot on the ground. You want to look at the sun. You want to you want to try to sleep earlier because all of a sudden and this is not right away, but it does happen. Your circadian rhythm starts getting in line, and eventually you even feel less stress, but the foundation is key. Get that foundation in. Don't worry if you don't do it perfectly. Just allow that to happen and then work on these other things as your body allows you to. So allow your body to let that happen. Let the body wisdom. The other thing I learned from carnivore is, my gosh, especially recently, I know I'm 9 years in, but recently the intuition is so strong. My intuition is just, I mean, now that's how I coach. I feel what my intuition tells me and I coach accordingly to that person, what they need at that time. And it's worked really well. So I feel like there's a spiritual connection there. That's why my intuition works so well.
Yeah. And it sounds like you've become so much more aware and you
Yes,
can show
definitely.
up
Yeah.
really paying attention.
Yes.
So I have a black eye and I came to meet stock and no one said anything. But I was telling people because I fell 2 days before I came on my face and
Ah,
no one
I
noticed.
didn't notice.
Yeah, no one noticed. And I wore red glasses most of the time. When I got home, it just got way worse. But I
Wow.
noticed either people have manners
Mhm.
or they're just not aware.
Right.
You
Right.
know? So I think awareness is such a beautiful thing. And when you come to carnivore, it gives you that because it clears your mind and your mind comes online. So I did carnivore and it took 18 days to transition fuel sources. So I like couldn't hold my head up. I'm walking dogs and I'm just like dragging myself around. My husband's like, I think you should quit. This looks dangerous. I don't, because I did look pretty bad. And people were like,
Right.
I think it's carnivore. And I'm like, listen, I just got to make it 21 days. So if I can make it 21 days, this is all going to change. And about halfway through the 18th day, I just felt that clear head and I could think and see and smell. Everything was so clear. I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. See,
Yeah.
if I would have quit, I never would have gotten there. I want to know when you have people you're working with, what do you tell them when they're, feeling stuck and so fixated on the things that aren't working or the things that are wrong? What
Right.
do you do with them?
Yeah. So first of all, whenever there's something wrong, and it depends on what exactly. So it's like, then I start tweaking with them. I like using fasting as a tool, depending on where they are at. So that's my personal choice on that. I like using elimination as a tool, like, hey, let's get rid of this. Let's try only this for a week. I had a client recently where he just had problems with a lot of food, like coming back up. And, my message is eating comfortably stuffed. The important part is being comfortable. So
Yeah.
when you're feeling this come up, that's not comfortable.
No.
Something's making it react. So after a while of gestating with him, I was like, let's try eggs only. for a week and see what happens. And within that week, he found out eggs doesn't make him do that. So then he started figuring out what to add on himself from there, where it doesn't. And that's what he looked at. He looked at that specific marker to help him. And I tell people this, one of the things to be aware is whatever negative symptoms is actually a blessing. It's telling you that you're not comfortable. What's going on? Let's embrace that. Let's look at those negative symptoms and let's use that to our own good and figure out which part of the eating does that. So, and it could be all the way down to fasting, because when you're not eating anything and you still feel the symptoms, well, then maybe it's something else. Maybe it's not related to food. That's kind of my approach.
What do you think about when people are just getting started and they're in ketosis or they're not in ketosis? They're not even checking. Isn't it important to fast when you're already burning ketones versus just fasting because you're on meat?
No, first of all, there is the priming stage that you just got to eat to the point where you feel a little discomfort where you're ready to fast. And that point is very important. Once your body is ready to get into fasting, then we test it out slowly, not with ketones, not with any measurement. Don't get me wrong. Those medical devices later on could actually point to a little bit helper so you can figure out yourself more. But I rather you try to figure that out on your own first,
Mm.
and really feel that out. And here, so what I try to do is build awareness. When you have tools like calories, macros, devices, how are you going to learn to be aware?
Mm.
Because you're looking at this and you're second guessing yourself every time. You're like, wait, I feel this way, but yet the scale's telling me something else. So
Yeah.
obviously I should be depressed because I got heavier. Something like that. I'm just giving you a rudimentary example.
I find that the scale doesn't actually tell you the truth of what
It
healthy
doesn't.
is inside your body,
No,
because when you're looking at a number and you want a number to go down, you still don't know what's happening in there.
that's
Like,
right.
there's no way
No.
to know. So I threw my scales away. It was funny. On Instagram, I threw them away. I had one of those new Hume Body Pod.
Oh,
I threw
yes.
that in there. I threw an old scale in there. And I was like, I wanted women, especially that follow me, to understand that when they're looking at that number and they're weighing every single day and they want to move it or they want to control it, I'm like, but it's not telling you the truth. You're looking at your body in the mirror and seeing what's changing is more beneficial than focusing on that. I do think that there are women who will do the carnivore diet and they never get in ketosis. They like,
There
it's
is that.
something going on, like their blood
Mhm.
sugars are still high and they just don't get there. And I'm wondering if you know what that might be.
Yeah, first of all, from my experience, what I've noticed is that they're malnourished or undernourished. Usually that's the key. They haven't taken the time to eat properly because they're scared to.
Mhm.
So obviously one doesn't work without the other, right? You can't really fast well, you can, but that's called starvation. And that's not going to help you get ketones at all. On the contrary, it will do the opposite. It'll keep your ketones low. You're going to be dependent on sugar. It's going to be harder for you to fast. This is why I'm all about a nourished fasting. It's not just fasting. It's not starvation fasting. And I understand religious part aside. If you need to do it religiously, that's different. Yes, it should be torture, but fasting should never be that way. Nourished fasting is easy. It's fun. You should even enjoy those moments more than you do the eating time sometimes.
Because it gives you a lot of clarity, wouldn't you say?
So much. Today's my fasting day. I actually do alternate day fasting.
Okay.
So I'll eat one day, I won't eat the next day. And I eat about 3 meals on my up days or 2 meals. It just depends, But it's my up day. So I choose whenever I want to eat. But on my down days, I just don't eat. And that's the one that really chisels me out the best. But there's no way I could have done that early on. I used to have issues doing blood work because I couldn't do the 12-hour fasting. I
Yep.
had to have something in my body. That's how bad I was off. Okay. So for somebody to say this and all of a sudden I'm alternate day fasting like it's nothing, I mean, obviously it took some training. Carnivore was the foundation that got me to that point. It gave me that gift to be able to do that.
So let's talk to the women who are doing carnivore ish. And what she's usually doing is still keeping all that stuff that's underlying continually going. She just keeps feeding it. But she's like, but this tastes good and I do this. But I'm like, I can't tell you what to do. But in my personal opinion, if you leave those things alone and you just go all in on carnivore, and I say fatty carnivore, like fatty red meat, add butter, and then you can do things. Cause I have people that come in and they're doing filet mignon or they're doing really lean meat. And talk to that. And I have another question.
Well, the biggest thing is I understand for early carnivores to want their erythritol, stevia, their coffees, I get it. Now, the reason that I say let's do this and do carnivore as much as you can is because that's still more beneficial than just not going into the carnivore. Okay. So yes, go ahead and have it. But once you have enough nourishment, you'll notice you're going to feel strong enough to give up that erythritol. And allowing that to happen is very important. Give up that coffee. Allowing that is important. Give up the whatever chocolate you decide to have at the end of the night because you just haven't eaten enough. Really and honestly, if we get the foundation right of properly, what I like to call priming, if you get that foundation right, you don't need any of these things. You get that food freedom. Like food is just fuel. It's like, and I know it's hard to believe, but keeping those little things all the time is what's keeping those cravings alive.
Exactly. I do coffee. I did go off coffee for 2 weeks before I
Yeah.
came to meat stock because I was doing an experiment.
Mhm.
But there are people that are eating, apples and
I know.
avocados and sourdough, and they can't get to that place they really want. Yeah, maybe they want to lose weight, but they also want to heal some things. So
Yes.
it's like, in order to get to that deep healing, it's either this thing or I'm going to go all in so that I can get my healing. I met Coach Lash, and his story was so inspiring. So I reached out to my son because he deals with the same kind of things and was telling him about it. He goes, well, maybe I could do it for a little while and heal and then kind of do the other thing. And I said, yeah, it doesn't really work like that. I think you're probably going to go backwards. Anyway, we'll see what this opens up. But the possibility of not itching and not having irritated skin seemed appealing. So we'll see.
Yes. And, everyone has their own journey. I like to actually tell people who are still into the sourdough or the avocado is look, meat forward, meat first, and make sure you eat quite a bit of that and then have anything else as a dessert. Therefore, you're actually training your body to be okay with just having meats. You don't need to deny it. You can delay it. You can say, well, maybe next meal. You can do that all you want, but just don't deny it. I don't deny myself any food that I want. If I want it, I will, but I don't feel like having it today. Maybe a year from now, maybe tomorrow, I might have something else, but right now, I'm good. And that's the way I like to think of it. Even something I crave. It's like, back then I used to crave some ice cream and I was like, that sounds actually pretty good right now. And I was like, it's too much work though. Let me just wait for tomorrow. Cause I have to go to grocery store and all that kind of stuff. And by tomorrow, I totally forgot about it.
You
That
know,
was my journey. Yeah,
So people that are, having emotional cravings or emotionally eating,
exactly.
I
Exactly.
tell them that if you can wait 15 minutes, we'll find any other thing to do
Yes.
because that can create a space. And that space will allow you to make it past it. But we think
Exactly.
in that moment we have to give in. I know we're almost done. What's one thing you wish you would have known before you got started with carnivore?
So many things. First of all, rendered fats. I didn't think I was the type that would cook my meat and made sure I had all the fats and I'd drain it in there. And I would get the stomach upset all the time and diarrhea. And I was like, and that was one of the key points. It's like I didn't have to suffer that bad. But I was one of those that was actually stubborn. And I was like, nah, doesn't matter what's happening to me. I'm just going to see. If it kills me, then you know what? At least I learned something. That's the way I looked at it. Because I just didn't want the old self anymore anyways because I was just that miserable. That was one of the things for sure. I wish I learned to lean on butter a little more for my cravings, but I didn't. Just ate something, which worked too. But that's a nice little hack. I wish earlier on that I learned about fasting earlier because I knew that would have made the transition a little bit easier to go on where I didn't just feel like constantly eating, so I overate to discomfort too much, and there is a negative reaction for that too. But that's how you learn, and that's why I incorporated all this into my program that I have to help people with their transitionary period.
What is one tip you would give someone who is starting or restarting so it actually sticks?
Yeah, prime. So the priming is very simple. I'll describe what that is. So it's eating 3 meals a day for the first week, 3 meals a day and two snacks is very important to have. The snacks is more like a top off. So you do that an hour after you eat if you feel like, oh, I could have something extra. Definitely do. Carnivore only. Coffee or anything other than water should be as a dessert. Eating 1 hour after waking is important to get your first meal in. Don't wait too long. Okay. It doesn't have to be exactly an hour and it could be earlier than an hour, but don't wait too long. Get those 3 meals in at least with the two snacks, and you do that for a week. The second week, see if you can get away from the snacks and see how gentle that flows. So those are the first 2 weeks of priming. On the third week of priming, you can exercise with the two mads and see how that works. 7 days, each one of them. And I recommend this for advanced carnivores also to give this a shot as a reset point. Now, as advanced carnivores, though, they may not need as long. But if you learned how advanced carnivores usually are more aware of their bodies, so they'll know whether they can stop after a week or maybe half a week or whatever of priming. And so that's my quick tips for any new people and also advanced carnivores.
I am so glad you came on today. Where can we find you and learn more about your work?
Well, I do, and I have a class today, Monday and Tuesdays at the Steak and Butter Gang. I teach priming and feet and fasting. And also on Saturdays, I also do a non-scale victory call, which is always a lot of fun. So that's all on the Steak and Butter Gang, which there'll be a link below, I'm guessing. And if
Hmm.
you want to reach out to me, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and what else am I on?
Are you on YouTube?
I am on YouTube. Thank you for that. I forgot to
Yes.
send that to you. Yes, I'm on YouTube also.
Well, and you answer your Instagram DMs because
Yeah, I do.
I
Beautiful.
messaged you as soon as you followed me and you were like,
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds fun.
So it does, and I'm glad
Okay.
we did this.
I'm so glad that you came on today. And I hope that people will take a lot from this conversation because it's a good one.
Yeah, they're so sweet. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you
Hopefully, keep
so
on
much.
encouraging all the ladies.